there, and welcome to another episode of the Home Tech Podcast. Jason Griffin here, and happy as always to have you with us. And I am joined once again by my partner Seth Johnson. Seth, how are you?
Good, man. Good, man. I just got back from the Apple event. Relishing all of the HomeKit announcements.
You got a ticket to that small room.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Well, they had to have a small room because they wanted to show off their awesome integrations with HomeKit, and many of them that it just filled up the whole thing. It felt like a home.
I've given up. I don't even get my hopes up anymore.
Well, you sound like Richard Gunther. He and I had some pretty funny spars back and forth before and after the event about how badly Apple has rolled out or not rolled out HomeKit. So fingers still crossed. I'm not jaded completely, but and I don't think Richard is either. But I'm hoping that it at least takes off sometime in the future because I think it's a really novel approach to home control.
I agree, and I haven't given up on the initiative of HomeKit. I've just given up on getting excited about the events until they come out and say, "Hey, we are having a HomeKit event." I'm just not going to get my hopes up.
Okay.
Well, anyways, we got a lot to cover. Great show. I think we are going to share, Seth. I think you had a couple of just maybe quick bullet points about the Apple event here in a minute, but we want to tease real quick. We had Brad Hintze on from Control4, and it was really great to have Brad on. I couldn't believe when I was looking back, we had Brad on a while back, and it's been almost a full year. And again, time really flies. So we were excited to get Brad on. Control4's obviously been a very busy company, and we really enjoyed catching up with Brad about the new EA controller line, the Pack Edge acquisition, and also what they had going on out at ISE. So great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really good conversation. He listed all the things they had done, and I've kind of watched that go by, but man, it's quite a bit in the last year. I can see why what they can actually see what being a public company has done for them, because man, they're just cruising now.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes. So we'll get into that, and be sure to stay tuned if you want to hear that. I thought it was a great conversation. Like I said, we've got a handful of stories here we want to cover first. And Seth, I was actually got stuck kind of driving around between meetings, so didn't have a chance to watch the Apple event, and didn't honestly bother to watch it after. I read a couple of the bullet points, but I know you were able to sit in and watch it, and you were kind enough to give us the play-by-play over on our Slack channel, The Hub, and curious to hear your thoughts on what the event entailed.
So I could basically tell you anything right now, and you'll believe me, right?
Maybe not quite that far.
They had Siri, like an Echo Siri. It was really cool.
And I missed it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So, not much from Apple this time. It was a small venue. I think you did see a picture of it at some point, because you did come back and say, "Whoa, that is a small venue."
Yeah, I got to watch like a couple minutes of it, but I was kind of running around.
It's their current. I guess it's their last time they're going to do any like major announcements in there, because that's their theater they have on campus, and now they're doing the big giant like spaceship campus. So they're going to have a massive auditorium that's like completely underground that they control everything, every aspect of. So it'll be actually cool to see in a year when they start doing events inside that auditorium how much larger it is.
Right. Right.
But so not much came out of it. The coolest thing, I guess, that I would get really excited about is the new iPad Pro. It's a 9.7 inch, and the best part on it is the video screen, which has a wider color gamut on it and 500 nits of brightness. Which means it can be a pretty bright screen, and has I forget what color correction they're using on it, but man, it's like a super high end color. So your photos, everything will look great on it. I always like to see screen technology just push forward, because when you're interacting with that kind of technology on a day-to-day basis, you may look up and see your ugly TV on the wall and think, I need to get a new one of those. So
very true.
Yeah. So I really like to see that stuff, just moved and progressed. And I'm excited about that, because it's one thing that you always get, like the colors on your Oh, it's another thing they did. The colors on the iPad. Like if you go into a warm room, the light, the iPad has like 4 sensors in it that will adjust the output to be like the light is reflecting off of the screen as a piece of paper and reflecting back to your eyes. So if you go into a bright room,
interesting,
a warm or a cool room, it'll adjust, which I thought is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it sounded very cool, and I know, like I said, in our Slack channel on the Hub, you were sounded like you were getting pretty excited about the screen, and I did get a chance to skim some summaries of it, and it does sound like some pretty neat technology. And then, of course, they had the smaller iPhone, which we won't really spend any time getting into here, but I think it does make sense in the world where the phones just for a while there seem to be getting bigger and bigger, and it does get a little bit difficult with the bigger phones to use them with one hand. And I think for a lot of people, the screen real estate isn't as necessary as just the smaller form factor is actually preferable. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And once again, disappointed but not surprised at the lack of HomeKit news, and we will stay tuned and we'll keep our fingers crossed for future events. Let's move on here. We've got you kind of teased me there that joking Apple had come out with an Amazon type device, and obviously that was just a joke. It reminded me though, we put up a poll on our Twitter account this week. You can do those Twitter polls, which are kind of neat, and this one got quite a few votes actually, and I'd put it up to see what people's thoughts were as far as traditional CI companies, so things like companies like Lutron, Control4, Savant, who might be one of these companies to be the first to have an official integration with Amazon. And we got quite a few results on that poll, and I think the winner, if I recall correctly, was Control4.
Yeah, it looks like 26 Lutron, 32 Control4, 12 Savant, and 30 other. No Crestron on there. Maybe that's the 30%. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking about them.
Right. I tried to leave that out for a reason, Seth.
Well, there's a lot of smaller home automation systems that already do have a like an Inato. James Meredith actually wrote in and said in Wirestorm Inato already does. There's a couple of other smaller ones that aren't kind of the main heavy hitters that we would think of, and at least in this market, in this area. But that it's coming, and I think Control4. I actually replied to you and said, "Yeah, hey man, when you put this poll out, Control4 already has the integration, but it's not like first party Control4 integration. It's a third party driver, a couple of drivers that they've kind of hacked into place an integration between Alexa. And there's actually a pretty cool video I sent you of somebody like really like launching all sorts of stuff, projector screens, integration with a pool, all by just yelling at a little tube sitting there on the kitchen counter, which is neat.
Yeah, very neat. And I really appreciate people taking the time to vote in that, and a couple of people who reached out and pointed out some of the platforms that I wasn't aware of. Inato, like you said, from Wirestorm was one that was specifically pointed out. And I think to your point, I was glad you shared that video with me, because to be honest, I wasn't aware that existed with Control4. But to your point, my question was really about, who's going to be the first company to really officially support it, as opposed to just kind of piecing together maybe third-party drivers and things like that. But either way, I wasn't not aware that integration capability even existed with Control4. So that was a very cool video. We'll put it up in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/104. Speaking of listener shout-outs, wanted to give a shout-out to Paul Tobin. And Paul, if you're listening, thank you for sending me this story. He reached out through our website, HomeTech.fm, and sent a link to a story that I didn't hear otherwise reported. And it looks like SmartThings had some issues where some platform performance issues where people were unable to access various services, including, importantly, the Smart Home Monitor, which is their new security service. So this was kind of a big story that I think just sort of went unreported or got missed, and I appreciate Paul reaching out to share the information, and I actually shared some thoughts of my own on our blog at HomeTech.fm/blog. Paul, if you're interested in seeing those, or anyone else, hop over to the blog and take a look.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. I really enjoyed reading Paul's email that he sent us, and said, the infrastructure in the back end of the thing that keeps SmartThings running kind of fell flat on its face, and I'm not sure. Reading what they had there, and kind of the armchair, engineers that have posted below, which is kind of silly to read through. I'm not really sure what has happened. It seems like they're trying to fix it, but it doesn't leave me with any, I don't know, good feelings. Like it's not something that they seem to have like pinned down to a specific cause. So I guess this is probably something you touch on in your blog post, but this is what happens when you have a cloud-based infrastructure and something that doesn't want to run locally in the home. Like this can happen. You're relying on someone else's computers to do the heavy lifting, and when they go down, your smart home goes down.
Right, and hopefully not nothing more than an inconvenience for most people. But like you said, I think that was really the takeaway for me is as everything is moving up to the cloud. People like you and me and a lot of our listeners, we naturally understand, and I'd say most home technology enthusiasts understand that there's a trade-off there. But I think there is a broad segment of the market that maybe doesn't think about it at that level or at that depth necessarily. And I think in order for the smart home to really reach that elusive mainstream that we always talk about, things like this, there's going to be some bumps in the road like this, and people are just going to have to understand that we get a lot of convenience out of these cloud technologies and what they afford and what they can provide us. But there is a trade-off, and I think it's an important thing, and stories like this just serve as a good reminder of that.
Yeah, it reminds me, I'm looking ahead on our show planning, and it looks like next week we are talking about a lot of these things, like software-based solutions. This is if you've been waiting around for OpenHAB and for us to mention software like software-based home automation products, this is going to be your episode, and you're going to find out a little bit more, about what we think about them and how they're operating and what they do, why we don't always talk about them. So this is a probably one of those reasons why we'll probably bring up again in episode 105. So listen in. We definitely want to hear feedback off of that one when we get to it. Speaking of things kind of falling down and stumbling blocks along the way of getting all this figured out, this is a public account, Privacy Matters, on Twitter. I saw this kind of go by me and have heard a couple of other people talk about it. But last week we talked about how Nest added in family logins, and to get the family logins, you actually had to go in and actually accept a new terms of service. And what Privacy Matters here, at Privacy Matters on Twitter's retweeted, says, can no longer remotely control my Nest thermostat with the iOS or Android unless I read and legally agree to over 15,000 words. Holy cow.
And I think the issue that was described was that you may go, I guess, update your app in order to unlock these new features, and all of a sudden you're kind of stuck agreeing to these terms of service, or else you've bricked the thing, I guess, and you can't really use the app, as I understand it. I don't know. I don't get too hung up on these terms of service, and I know a lot of people worry about maybe what's in the fine print there. I have to believe, have a little bit of faith in these companies that there's nothing all that worrisome in these terms of service, and I get the point. It's kind of annoying, and I understand that there are people out there who need to worry about this stuff, and God bless them for it. And we need those people out there, organizations like Privacy Matters, to be thinking about it. I don't personally, I don't know about you, Seth, but had I run into this issue, I would have just clicked agree and moved on with my life.
Yeah, I think most people would have. The only thing is if you didn't agree to them and you didn't want to have the new, family features or whatever, if the family login features, like it says, okay, well, we're here, the app is done, we'll shut down, so you can't actually get in and actually control your Nest thermostat. Like you paid
Gotcha.
$250 or $300 for this thermostat. It's going to be a little nice shiny object on the wall, but past that, it's not going to do anything else for you.
Interesting.
Which I think is, it's really interesting.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah. Because we're talking about software terms of service on one hand, and then we're talking about hardware that you've purchased and is living in your house. And I think Nest could have probably done a better job by, giving you a route to not take the update and live with the old terms of service that you've already accepted. Like I think they could have done that, and it would have been an easier transition for some of their users. And then one day down the road, they're going to have to switch or upgrade their users. But man, it seems kind of heavy-handed, if you ask me.
Yep. Yeah. Fair point. Well, anyways, let's move on. We've got another story here. We talked about last week, big news that Sonos was apparently making a minor correction or a major correction, depending on how you look at it, and who knows what's going on internally. But they were announcing some layoffs and refocusing on streaming services and voice control. And, if you didn't catch our conversations about that, you can go back to last week's episode and hear it. I'm sure most of our listeners are well aware of the story. This week, we wanted to point out sort of a follow-up, I guess, that Julie Jacobson over at CE Pro put up that I thought was pretty relevant and something worth discussing here on this week's show.
Yeah, so this is from a letter, like almost an open letter. I'm not sure, but I guess it's a copy of a letter that he sent to John McFarlane, and with his permission, CE Pro reprinted it with a couple of edits here and there. But this guy's a gold, what they call a Sonos Gold dealer, which is means that he sells a lot of Sonos product. Like he moves it through. He sells it to his customers. He has to have a retail location and promote it on his website. And for that, Sonos gives him this gold status. And I think they put a little like where to buy Sonos. You would appear as somebody was looking to buy Sonos locally. They could go and type in their zip code, and if they didn't pick Amazon or Best Buy or Target, you might see that there's a little guy down at the bottom that in California where he is.
Yep. San Jose.
Yep, San Jose. That sells Sonos, and that's what you get for being a gold dealer. And he went down the list of things that dealers may have gripes for, and I gotta agree with just about every one of them. Because man,
yeah, there was a couple on here that were very prescient, and presumably. This wasn't really clearly spelled out, but the gist of the article led me to believe that he had, and his name's Matt Lindstedt, and I apologize if Matt happens to be listening and I'm mispronouncing that, but he sent this letter to John McFarlane, Sonos CEO, presumably prior to when the big news about the layoffs and whatnot broke. And a couple of the lines in there, one of them, I've got it right in front of me here, quoting, Amazon Echo is a huge game changer for the industry. It's a toy now, but it does enough to create excitement, and Sonos should be worried. And end quote there. And I think obviously that seems to be something that has borne out. And really, we talked about it last time we discussed the story, and who knows to what extent the Amazon Echo has really eaten into Sonos market share. But I do think it is a product that's creating a ton of buzz. And Sonos is just apparently, or it would at least appear, has been sort of resting on their laurels. And I think it was a great point by Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I almost would say that they've been asleep at the wheel on this one because, like I said last week, when I got the Echo in and I said, hey, Alexa, play a song, I was like, oh, this is really cool. It can play me a song off Amazon Prime Music. But man, it would sound a lot better if it actually went through my real speakers and my real Sonos system. And
right,
I can't. I mean, it's been a year. It's been a year now that this product has been either announced or on the market where you could purchase it. I've gotta just shake my head at Sonos for not waking up to the fact that this is a perfect thing to tie into their product, because I mean, we all have a lot invested into Sonos, and it has a huge brand recognition. I mean, so he actually says in here, and I think it's a couple of lines below the one you just read, Sonos has a much bigger brand recognition now than it did 5 years ago. Most of my potential clients have heard of Sonos before I bring it up, and 100% agree, 1,000%. Most of my clients and builders say, "Hey, have you ever heard of Sonos?"
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been selling it for 6 years.
Ton of recognition. It's impressive. I would completely agree. I think that most of his points were spot on. This is actually another one that I thought was interesting and wanted to share some of my thoughts on. So put it up on the blog. And really one of my main takeaways from this article is I think there was kind of a lack of emphasis on the fact in the article, and maybe that was intentional, and maybe Julie feels like it goes without saying, but I felt like there was a lack of emphasis on the fact that, to me, it would appear that Sonos still doesn't care what the dealers think, because this recent announcement really had nothing to do with a lot of the big complaints and requests that we as the dealer base have been issuing. Things like, where's an open API? Give us an outdoor model. Why can't we have AirPlay? A lot of these things that as dealers we really want and have been clamoring for. And Sonos, I think, for what I'm sure they have their reasons, but they just haven't been listening. And I think it's important to remind people that nothing in this latest story or this latest news about Sonos indicates that has changed, in my opinion.
Yep, 100% agree. And I'd like to add to the record book that you mentioned Sonos not having AirPlay before I did.
That may be a first.
I believe it is.
That's got to be a first. All right, well, one more story here before we jump into our interview with Brad, and that looks like Ring has put out... Well, Ring was in the news for a couple of different stories this week, and one of them is the new Ring Pro doorbell, which actually looks pretty slick. I know we were kind of giving Ring a hard time a couple of weeks ago for some of the design aesthetics behind their little solar panel and the stick-up cam, but this thing actually looks pretty nice.
Yeah, this is really cool. So basically what they did is they removed the battery pack that's in the original Ring doorbell, made some industrial design changes, put a better camera in it, and made a really nice-looking video doorbell, a really slim, thin video doorbell compared to the Ring that we see in the stores right now. This thing looks great. I almost picked up a Ring doorbell the other day, and because the price has been dropping and I think the normal Ring is $179 right now in most places. I think I ran into it like $149 at Home Depot, and I had it in my hand. I'm like, this could make it home if it really wanted to.
Right.
But no, this one came out. It's got a couple more features. It has, I guess, better motion detection, 1080p video, night vision, and of course it builds in. They have their cloud video recording. It doesn't have the battery like the other one, but if you've got wires there, you don't really need a battery.
Right. And it looks like available in 4 different colors. Not sure if you mentioned this, Seth, but $249. And looks like up for pre-order now, and according to their site, shipping in late April, so coming right up. And I do think a big improvement in the form factor, and I think it looks pretty nice. I commend them.
Yeah, me too. It beats having the wired what is it? The wired solar panel,
stick-up cam. Yeah, the solar panel.
Oh my gosh. What's interesting is this one comes with 4 faceplates. So, you can
interesting.
Swap out which one you don't, I guess throw the other 3 away. I'm not sure how it works. Maybe they're recyclable. But I know that the other Ring doorbells, they shipped. They were you had to buy them in the particular color that you were looking to get. This way they can ship one package, essentially, or have one SKU, which is kind of nice. I'm sure it saves them some
logistical challenges, but like you said, I suppose a lot of those will probably be getting thrown away, which is kind of a bummer, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal.
Yep, definitely.
And just in one other little follow-up bit of news on Ring, like we said, they were in the news for a couple of different stories this week, and it looks like they actually raised another looks like $61 million. So they've been raising some money, and it looks like they're growing and being very aggressive, and we continue to hear a lot about Ring and wish them the best. I think it's a cool product. I think they have had a couple of little missteps along the way, and we've talked about those. But I think overall they've really been one of the companies sort of leading the charge at that point of entry, meaning things like doorbells. And I do have to wonder if they're going to branch out into the smart lock business at some point here. I think that would be a logical next step for them, and I suspect it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, they seem to be really pushing that home security angle, which is interesting. It came from a doorbell, and to kind of move into home security is interesting, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, the doorbell's one of the first things you come to when you come up to a house. And if somebody is staking out, I mean, this is in their commercials that you hear all the time, but if somebody's staking out the house, the first thing they'll come up and do is ring the doorbell. And if nobody answers,
see if anyone's home.
Yeah, they break right in. So having a camera recording the guy ringing the doorbell who broke into your house is obviously a pretty good thing to have. And the price points I think are still pretty good, even at $249. it seems like a win-win to me. It'll probably come down in price too. I still think the other ones are pretty good. The version 2, because the version 1 was Doorbot, which kind of looked a little robotic. Like, it was okay.
Looked a little door body.
Yeah. But the Ring version 2, when they rebranded Ring and they came out with everything, I think it's a great product. I think it was very well designed, and has, actually passed the design committee at my house. And I think the new one. There you go. Yeah, that's the new one definitely would too. Just got to get it by the budget committee. That's all.
Right. Yeah. A couple of committees.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yep.
Understood. All right. Well, without further ado, let's jump into our conversation. Once again, we had Brad Hintze on from Control4, and really enjoyed catching up with him about all of the things that Control4 has been up to. So let's go ahead and get started with the conversation. Welcome to the show, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I understand that you're joining us from the Sky Club at the airport right now.
Yep, I came out to visit Pack Edge and on my way home.
Oh, very good. Well, that's very appropriate because we are definitely going to jump in and talk about Pack Edge tonight, and wish you safe travels there. And again, appreciate you coming on. So let's, before we jump into a couple of the topics that we want to cover tonight, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, Brad, why don't you give us a quick personal introduction?
Okay, so I've been at Control4 for a little over a year now. I'm director of product marketing over there. It's been a great time. I've really enjoyed doing what I'm doing over here. Prior to Control4, I've done a lot of work in mobile, software platforms, APIs, integrations, and enabling developers to build really cool technology by blending technology and services as well. And now I get to do it with software and hardware. So it's a great time.
Yeah, that's always fun. And I don't think most programmers out there realize what a leap it is when you start adding hardware on top of the software, and then hardware you have absolutely no control of on top of the software, like a uncooperative TV or projector, per se.
Right, exactly. You're using IR or serial instead of a well-known API. Yeah, your life. Well, I mean, even in software world, there's plenty of things that can drive you crazy too.
Yep, definitely. So it's been a year, I guess, since we spoke with you last here on the podcast. I think last time we spoke, you guys were you had like a live stream that you were just about to do, and I think you have done actually a couple of those as a dealer. I've seen for some of your events since then. What else is going on?
Oh, we've not done anything lately. No, I sleep all the time. No, we've got a lot of really great stuff to talk about. Last time I joined, we had just released 2.7 and a bunch of new hardware like touchscreens and thermostats, but now, just a couple months ago, we released our new controllers. Before that, we released 2.8 with Pandora. We also released 4K video switches last summer. And then just after we released controllers, we also announced our new square wireless lighting for EMEA and for Asia. So yeah, and then of course the big news, Pack Edge acquisition. So we've been very busy over here.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. I was just joking there. I mean, we had you on, and then all of a sudden, just the news started rolling out of Control4. It's like, wow, look at these guys are up to. So we've been excitedly watching from the sidelines, and it's been now that you list all that. I mean, I'm a dealer. I get all of that. I've seen all that happen. Of course, I'm here on the podcast. We talk about it on the news, but that's quite a bit for a year's worth of work at Control4.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been exciting to be a part of bringing it out to the market, but even more exciting to see how dealers are leveraging the products too, right? That's always the best. It's one thing to announce a product, but it's something entirely different to ship it and then have people start using it and putting it as a core component of their business, and for homeowners to be bringing it into their homes too.
Right. So I guess let's talk about one of the products that is shipping, actually shipping. It's not vaporware. It existed on day one of the announcement, which I thought was probably the coolest part of the EA processors launch. The EA processors. I guess tell us a little bit about those and what you think the best features are of them.
Okay, cool. So the EA line is actually something that I've been working on since day one at Control4 in bringing those out to market. And the reason we're really excited about these new controllers is that they really can scale very easily from a one-room deployment, right, just that family room, all the way up to a really large property. This gives dealers choice. This gives consumers choice in the type of solutions that they bring into their home. And if they want to grow and expand over time, they don't need to do a forklift upgrade. They can just expand that solution. And one of the key components of this EA line is actually the E part of the EA, and that's the entertainment aspect of it. We think that entertainment is an underserved part of the home automation market, particularly in the DIY side. But we wanted to deliver a real high quality, exceptional entertainment experience into even more homes. So that's why we have the EA1 that brings the entertainment automation, so you can do all of your family room, universal remote type experience to even more homes at a more aggressive price point. But then also the high-res multi-room audio is a key feature across the whole line as well. So that's that entertainment aspect to it. And then the third part of it, we got scaling, we got the entertainment, but then we also wanted to bring a lot more power and performance, and then of course reliability too, because we do want this to become really the infrastructure of a home, of a smart home. And so in order to do that, you need that power and the performance to connect all of the devices in a home, but then you also want it to always be running, right? Always be on. And so that's the core component to this new EA line of controllers.
Very good. And it looks like a compelling line. You mentioned as part of your description there, the high resolution audio built right into the processor. And I think that was it looks like a wise move, at least from the outside. And I want you to talk about that decision. I'm sure that involved some engineering challenges and things along that, of that nature. So talk about the decision to include that on these processors.
Okay. Yeah. So, it did involve a lot of engineering and deliberate development too. The HC line of controllers was on the market for 4 years. And on top of that platform, we built a lot of innovation and a lot of new solutions. And so we wanted to make sure that this new line had the runway and gives us even more headroom to continue to build on top of that innovation. And the HD audio, high resolution audio, is a core component of that because, we built new hardware on that, 2 DSPs in the EA5, 1 DSP in the EA3. And with all the extra audio outputs, we knew that over time and in the very near future, high-resolution audio is just going to become the standard. Just like today, if you're speccing in a TV into a home, it's 4K, right? That's just the standard. And high-resolution audio will become that very soon. A year ago, it was kind of up in the air whether it was 4K or 1080, but now 4K is the default. And we believe that high-resolution audio will be that also. We wanted to make sure that that was across the whole line so that customers could really enjoy their music the way it was intended. And the way it's delivered, it really makes it better. It sounds better in any room. It doesn't matter whether you just enjoy music or you really, really get into it. You can hear a difference. And we knew that would be a key differentiator that, it's really not delivered as a core part of any other home automation platform. So we were excited to build that in and to really focus on this exceptional entertainment.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's a great feature, and you talked a lot about the quality aspect of it, but let's talk just about the use case. I mean, from a simple design perspective, whether you're a professional putting a system together or a home technology enthusiast who's shopping your options, it shouldn't be, you want to make sure you understand that what these new processors actually bring to the table is functionality like you would get in a Sonos. So it's kind of, you're getting a bonus almost, a 2-in-1 there. And I know you've got a number of streaming services included. What are some of the streaming services that are available built into the box?
So yeah, that's a really great point. And we have Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, TuneIn, and Rhapsody all built in as a native part of the Control. Another announcement that we made actually at CEDIA with Pandora and 2.8 is native support for AirPlay too. So that's something that you're not going to get on some of those other boxes. So now not only do you have that built-in native support for those services, but you can also then stream anything from your mobile phone, which is great for guests or for a service that we don't support natively. And then, of course, you can play all your local files, too. But one of the really interesting aspects that I think a lot of people don't think about in terms of this music server that's built in is that you get multiple simultaneous streams, right? Because when you've got a family of 4 or 5, everybody has different musical tastes. And in a home where you've got audio in each individual room, you can listen to your own music that you want to. And these processors, these controllers, give you those multiple simultaneous streams. So mom and dad and the kids can each listen to their own music all at the same time, which is really great. And then the other aspect of the AirPlay support is that you can even have multiple instances of AirPlay that would then make it so that you can play to different parts of your home. And for instance, if you have a multi-level home, you can have one AirPlay target that is like the main floor, or you can have it in the master. So you're easily switching music between rooms just by selecting a different AirPlay, quote unquote, device.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. And I know AirPlay is something that Seth, you'll be very happy to hear is included. We've talked a lot about that on the air in terms of Sonos specifically. It's a feature that they don't support, actually, and one that we're always kind of scratching our heads about. I noticed in your list of streaming services there, Spotify was not included. That's a very big one with, I know, a lot of clients. Is there any plans with Spotify? Anything you can tell us on that front?
I wish. We are working on it. We know that's a big ask. We get that from dealers and from customers all the time, and we want to have the most choice. But these music providers also are real sticklers for that end user experience. And that's been part of the challenge in bringing in these customer or these additional services. They want to make sure that their experience carries over. So I don't have anything to announce, but we do know that that's an issue, and we're working on trying to solve it.
Yeah, it seems like with the streaming services, they feel like they've kind of like leveled out. Like used to, it was only Pandora and Rhapsody that you had to worry about here in the States. But I know overseas Spotify has been pretty big, and then when it moved over here into the U.S., it of course got pretty big. Now everybody is asking about Apple Music, so it's just like it's always a moving target.
It certainly is a moving target, and and regionally too, there are important factors too. In China, QQ is a big one, and so we are looking for the best way to kind of expand those, because we do believe in customer choice. But we also have to be cognizant of the amount of resources it takes to bring some of those as a part of the native platform as well.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how the EA controllers have been received by the dealer base. Control4 is it's only sold through dealerships to direct to end users that way. So how have the dealers responded, and what's the feedback you're getting up from the customers through the dealers?
So it's still a little early to be getting a lot of customer feedback, and we hope to start seeing that soon. But dealer feedback has been really quite overwhelming, which as a product marketing guy, I love that, to see that excitement and have it be really well received. A large majority of our dealer base has already adopted and is using the controllers. And, when we launched these, I don't know if you guys were able to participate, but when we launched these, we actually held live launch events in 12 cities across the U.S., all on the same day, on launch day. And then, of course, we did the live stream for everybody else. And so the enthusiasm and the excitement was palpable from the dealers. And I know that sounds like I'm overstating it, but then I took that, and I just got back from China. I spent 2 weeks in China, in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong. We were doing those launch events there, and same thing. Dealers were bringing, most of their employees. They were just trying to learn everything that they could about these new controllers. And so, it's. I wish I could launch products like that every month, just because it does get everybody so excited.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, I just want to say the killer one is the EA1 bundle that you guys have running right now, which is an EA1 with the SR260 remote. Great remote, great controller, but even better, a bundled price point that I think is going to do some serious damage to single room point solutions that your competitors are offering at that same price point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you look at, the remote, universal remote type functionality is great,
right.
Just controlling the TV. But then you look at the bundled music services, the AirPlay support, but then you've still got Zigbee. You've got Zigbee on there, so you can add lighting in that one room, and it's still very affordable. And yeah, it's a killer experience. So we are excited about that. We are seeing a lot of dealers selling many multiples of those. And so that's great, because we do want to take this technology out to a new class of customers. And we think that's the right way to do it, so that customers get in, they get started with the universal remote, maybe 1 or 2 light switches, and then over time they can expand that out through the rest of their home.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my first EA controller. It's the EA1. It'll be coming in for me to play around with at the office. We got a new showroom, and we decided to go ahead and put the EA controller in there.
Oh, great!
And it's been delivered. I just haven't seen it yet because it's a different warehouse location. So
right.
Can't wait to get that and get my hands on it. So let's talk a little bit about Pack Edge. You're there in San Francisco?
Yep.
You just met with Pack Edge. Control4 has acquired Pack Edge, and it seems to be generally well received throughout the industry and thought as a great move. What motivated Control4 to purchase Pack Edge?
Well, the reality is you can't have a home automation system today without IP infrastructure. You have to have a good, rock solid network. What Pack Edge brings to the table is they have great hardware, but they also have great software. And so they have a lot of innovation going on with the Connect Plus platform, the ability to be aware of all of the devices that are on the network, segmenting that traffic, self-healing, and scaling, of course, that network to fit within any home. Those are the things that we really were excited about with Pack Edge. Some of the other vendors out there today, they offer some hardware, but it was really that software component combined with hardware, which is, again, our domain expertise as well, in that network space, was really attractive. And so we think that's a really important part for any home going forward, whether it's for home automation or just day-to-day use. Think about how many devices you have connected to the network, and that number, it just continues to grow exponentially.
Yeah, without question, it's a critical part of any home technology system, and definitely a recurring theme on our show is the importance of that network. And I think, again, at least from the outsider's perspective, that the move looks like it makes a lot of sense. Can you talk about, just out of curiosity, to what levels are the company, or to what level I should say, are the companies going to be merging sort of the day-to-day operations?
So we'll be merging day-to-day really quite well, quite substantially. That's the benefit of taking an innovative company that needs more resources and then combining it with a larger company that has resources to provide for them. So operationally, finance-wise, supply chain management, warehousing and ordering, those things will merge, and that's obviously an area where we have a lot of expertise, and we can help streamline and improve and grow and expand that business, right? Scale it up to serve a larger number of dealers. The things that will remain separate is our focus on both channels, right? And that's how we're approaching it. We've got the Control4 channel, our existing dealer base, and we'll continue to push package within that channel and provide products that are very well integrated for our Control4 dealers and for that experience. But then there are a lot of dealers that were already buying package gear that are not Control4 dealers, and we'll continue to support those dealers in their businesses, even on competitive home automation platforms. And so from that perspective, tech support, sales will continue to serve both audiences in a more separate, more autonomous way.
Sure. Makes sense. You touched on it very briefly, but I'd like to hear more. I'm not personally familiar with the technology, although just very vaguely. Are there particular technologies, you mentioned Connect Plus with Package, that you're excited about how they might interface with Control4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Connect Plus is the biggest part of the the platform approach that I'm really excited about. And frankly, there's a lot that I still have to learn about the full product offering. But the vision and what Connect Plus delivers today is really innovative and interesting. As we, today and moving forward, the ability to understand better what's on your network, right? And Backpack especially gives you that web-based view of all of those devices. You can easily see the status, see if something's online, offline. You can even restart some of those devices right through the interface. You can plug something in and it knows where to go. That also includes package zones, which is a VLAN type. It is VLANs, and then that way you're segmenting your traffic, because then you can separate your home automation traffic and your video and audio streaming traffic, and then just your normal everyday use traffic. But you do it in such a simple way; it's much easier to roll out and implement within each of your customers' homes. And so I think that part's really exciting and really interesting. Hardware is important, of course. It needs to be reliable and always on, but the ability to manage networks, make sure they're up and running, upgrade them, and add and remove devices easily, that's where it is really important for both customers and for dealers.
Right. I suspect, as if it's already not, but I suspect in the next coming couple of years, security is going to be a bigger focus. And some of the features you mentioned there are security-related features, or could potentially make your network a little more secure. And having them easier to set up and install and deploy, I guess, correctly, it makes sure that your network is actually set up secure. I've seen all sorts of interesting ideas about how to make internet-connected devices secure that are just floating around. And I know that they're not going to work as well as what the people, the so-called experts, are trying to get them to work, because you start introducing latency when you do what they're recommending. And having a solid network in the house, you go and you press a button on the wall, you expect the light to turn on. Mm-hmm. And if you start introducing latency, the performance and the wow factor and everything else goes down. So then you're like, well, why did I even buy this? It doesn't beat $1, $1's worth of light switch. So I'm really excited that you guys have purchased, essentially acquired Package. And I'm glad to see that, you're going to be offering what will be a secure system to be deployed into homes for dealers who are selling the product.
Right. and what you're hitting on is that, the biggest risk for, it's the biggest security risk for any home network really is the defaults, right? What's set on the router when you pull it out of the box and plug it in. And that really comes down to laziness, and that comes that sounds like a terrible way to phrase it, but it really comes down to not knowing and understanding how to make those changes. So if you can make that more self-aware, more approachable, then you're going to be a lot more secure. But then also the other reality is that for many homeowners, we've just become accustomed to flaky Wi-Fi or accustomed to slow parts within our home. And once you really get a solid network and you see and really appreciate it, then it kind of disappears. And that's a good thing.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I'm sure you don't.
So we're laughing because we're having some pretty major network issues tonight, and we're really thankful that Brad's putting up with us here. So
I'll send you guys some package gear tomorrow. How's that?
Hey, that's great.
Right. Hey, I won't turn it down.
So let's move a little bit off of Pack Edge and talk a little bit about what happened at ISE. You guys had a pretty exciting ISE. We talked to a dealer over from the UK who went in and said the Control4 booth was hopping and it was set up. It was set up. I guess you guys had a bunch of partners set up along, kind of like what you could do at CEDIA, and he thought that was a really novel and interesting concept. But I guess what were some of your highlights that you pulled away from ISE for Control4?
ISE is a great show, and it's always fun to go over there and talk to dealers on that side of the world, right? And how they approach things a little bit different and see those commonalities. One of the things that we did differently with our booth this year is we tried to really focus on the solution areas within a smart home. And, that also includes the platform, of course. So the EA line was a really big hit. And then the interfaces, one whole section where we just talk about the many ways that you can interact with your home, whether it's remote, a mobile, the Apple Watch, which I forgot to mention, we also released too, the Apple Watch app, your touch screens, both in wall and tabletop, and then of course the on-screen display. So that was another really hot area. But of course, lighting with square wireless form factor, that was new for that at that show. We released it there, but of course that's really important for that market. And this new square wireless lighting is awesome for existing homes. So you can more easily take out existing switches and put in this new wireless. Before we only had the centralized lighting. So that was kind of restricted more to those new construction projects or those really heavy remodels. And now you can more easily just swap out an existing switch for this new wireless switch. And then, of course, the Pack Edge news was big, and so Pack Edge actually had a booth there, and we would take a lot of dealers over to the booth and check out the new hardware. So yeah, it was busy and always packed. It's good to see.
Yeah, I the feedback we got was actually, the Pack Edge announcement was there too, but we got feedback from Chris. He said that there was a lot of excitement around having the square form keypads for the market, because he said it's always been a difficult conversation with architects and designers in that area of the world to have something, I guess what we call the decor style, or the more rectangular looking switches on the walls in the European markets, when there's not much of that over there.
No, there's not. And there's actually another challenge too, and that is their wall boxes are much more shallow. And so that was part of the challenge in bringing these to market, is that we had to, they're shallow and there's different sizes. There's round, there's square, And so the screw holes are in different locations. And so we needed to build a really versatile product that would fit that variety of wall boxes. And, we had dealers that were doing a new construction project and they'd bring in some of the Decora stuff. But you're right, this is much easier now. So the product is much smaller, which is great. It looks great. But the other big change on these is that both the dimmer and the switch, they're keypads. Yeah. And so, in the Decora style, we have switches and then we have keypads. And so you have to spec in the right product. And if you have a dimmer in there and you want it to be a keypad, you have to swap out the product. Well, in the square form factor, it's a switch or a dimmer. And at any point, you can change the button configuration. So it's really, really flexible. As a dealer, you just throw in the product you need and then configure it later, whether it's a two button or all the keypads. Yeah, so that's an exciting change.
Can we get that?
Yes, I would love to have that too.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, definitely makes life easy, I'm sure, for the designers. I'm writing a lot of estimates these days as part of my day-to-day, and certainly anything that can be done to eliminate one moving part or one potential gotcha out of that design equation is always a helpful thing, and I know appreciated by the dealer base. So that's very cool. I didn't realize that about those particular products. Let's kind of start to wrap things up. We're running short on time, and I want to zoom out and ask a high-level question. I was at CEDIA this last year and had a chance to sit down with Martin, your CEO, and had a great chat with him in my capacity as an integrator, and really found a lot of what he said very interesting. And one of the key things that I took away from that conversation was really Martin's seemed very focused on Control4 being, acting like and being perceived as an infrastructure company as opposed to a company that just sells gadgets. And he was very passionate and adamant about that point. And I'd love to get your thoughts on Control4's stance as really being seen as an integral part of the infrastructure of today's home.
Yeah. So, I think that's a really important thing that we need to help people see. I think if you look closely at the products that we're bringing and the solutions that we offer, but also the recent package acquisition, it is focused around that infrastructure of the home. You spoke earlier about the latency and, comparing it to a light switch. When you bring this technology into your home, it becomes an integral part of your life. Whether it is the lighting or the audio or the TV part of it, it does become that second part of, just that natural part of your life. We build the platform to have, like I mentioned earlier, a longer lifespan, not something that you recycle every year. And so that's why the power and the reliability is really important. But we also focus on those key components like networking, that is another part of that infrastructure. And the important part about infrastructure is that it just disappears when it's working, right? You don't really think about your lights. You just turn it on when you need light. And that's how we want this technology to be, because we want it to enhance individuals' lives. And in order to really do that, you have to be at that level of integration and that level of performance and reliability. And gadgets are fun and they're interesting. I have lots of gadgets. I play with gadgets all day long, and they certainly have a piece or a part of our lives. But that's very different than a real infrastructure play.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, it definitely resonated with me, and it was something I really took away from that conversation. So once again, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on and join us. Sounds like you've been a traveling man lately, so I'm sure you're exhausted, and really appreciate you trooping through and coming on to the Home Tech Podcast to catch up. You guys have been very busy, clearly, and I've really been looking forward to this conversation to get your thoughts on what's been going on. If you can look into your crystal ball or perhaps divulge anything that might be interesting to the audience, tell us what's next. What are you guys at Control4 getting excited about these days?
Oh, man. I have to be careful or Martin will smack my hand. He's got a mantra, announce and ship, right? And you saw that with the EA controllers.
Very true.
But there are a lot of really exciting things that we see and that we're talking about. Of course, we're going to be talking about the EA controllers for a long time. But over the weekend, there's, as a dealer, you've probably seen some chatter on the forums about an Amazon Echo driver. There's actually a couple of them. House Logics has one. Another dealer has one. I forget his name at the moment. And so I was playing with that over the weekend. Man, it's so cool. It is so awesome.
Very cool.
I don't know if you guys have played with that, but I think that voice control has an interesting role. Just like you need a variety of interfaces, touch screens, remotes, light switches, that kind of thing. Voice control becomes yet another one of those interesting interfaces. So that's been kind of fun. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to.
I'm sure. Well, if our listeners wanted to connect with you, ask a follow-up question, or just find out anything more, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Email works really well, and it's just bhintze@control4.com.
Great, and we will include some information about that in our show notes if you want to go check that out at HomeTech.fm. So once again, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and join us, and we will let you go.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.